I didn't expect my life to shift the moment I walked into that office. It was just an internship, a summer gig at a small marketing firm downtown. I was 22, freshly out of college, still figuring things out. I'd applied half-heartedly, not expecting to hear back. But then I got the call, and 2 weeks later I was stepping into a sleek, overly air-conditioned workspace with glass walls and modern furniture, pretending I didn't feel completely out of place. Then I met him, Liam. He was introduced to me as the team lead I'd be working under. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp features softened by a lazy kind of smile that felt both inviting and slightly dangerous. He couldn't have been more than a few years older than me, 26 or 27 maybe, but he carried himself like someone who already knew exactly who he was and where he was going. "Eli, right?" he said, offering his hand as he leaned against the edge of his desk. "You're the intern with the ridiculous resume." I blinked. Ridiculous bad or…" He laughed. "No, impressive. No one actually runs a student club and interns for 2 nonprofits and graduates early. You trying to make the rest of us look lazy?" I shrugged, trying to play it cool even as my ears went warm. "Just really bad at saying no to things." That made him grin wider. "Well, you'll fit right in." And just like that, I was hooked. At first, it was purely professional. Liam was smart, quick on his feet, the kind of guy who could charm a client in 5 minutes and somehow make spreadsheets sound exciting. We worked closely. Too closely. Our desks were side by side, our projects overlapping constantly. I learned quickly that he wasn't just easy on the eyes. He was patient, funny in a dry way, and he remembered everything, like how I took my coffee, what kind of music I liked, that I always bit my pen cap when I was nervous. The worst part, he was straight, at least as far as I could tell. He talked about women like a guy who had experience, casually, without pretense, but also without lingering on it too much. There was no mention of a current girlfriend, but there were vague references to past ones. And every now and then, when we were out grabbing lunch or walking to the train, I'd catch him looking at someone, always women. So I kept my thoughts to myself. But there were moments, little cracks in the wall. The time we stayed late to finish a client deck and ended up sitting cross-legged on the floor, eating takeout, our knees brushing occasionally. He didn't move away. The morning he showed up in a hoodie, hair slightly messy, and I told him he looked like someone's hot ex. He just laughed and said, "Only X? Ouch." Or the afternoon our fingers accidentally touched over a shared keyboard, and neither of us pulled away for just a second too long. I told myself it was nothing. Wishful thinking. Then came the rooftop party. Every summer, the company hosted a casual Friday mixer. Drinks, snacks, music, that sort of thing. It wasn't mandatory, but Liam told me I had to come, no excuses, and I wasn't about to say no. It was your typical office social event. Slightly awkward, people drinking too fast, trying too hard to relax. I stuck by Liam mostly, sipping my beer and laughing at his stories. At one point, someone brought out cards for a drinking game, and the group split into smaller circles. I found myself sitting on a lounge chair next to Liam, both of us a little buzzed, warm from the setting sun. He leaned in, voice low. "You good?" "Yeah," I said, feeling his thigh brush against mine. Just wasn't expecting to have this much fun with coworkers. He smiled, eyes locked on mine. "I guess we're not just coworkers, though, right?" My heart skipped. "What are we then?" He didn't answer right away, just held my gaze like he was debating something. Then someone shouted his name across the deck, breaking the moment. He pulled away, laughing softly. Hold that thought. But that thought didn't go anywhere. It lived in my head all weekend. By Monday, things were back to normal. Or so I thought. Until the day he showed up at my apartment, unannounced, holding 2 coffees and looking like he hadn't slept much. "Can we talk?" he said. And that's when everything changed. He was standing in my doorway like some kind of glitch in reality. Liam with his perfectly tousled hair, casual hoodie, and 2 coffees that were starting to sweat in the summer heat. I stepped back, blinking. Yeah, of course, come in." He walked in slowly, glancing around like he hadn't seen the inside of a 1-bedroom apartment in a while. It wasn't fancy. Cramped couch, Tiny kitchen, my desk piled with old receipts and a half-eaten protein bar. But it was mine. Liam handed me one of the cups. I wasn't sure what you drank, so I guessed. I looked down. Vanilla cold brew. My exact order. I raised an eyebrow. He shrugged. You talk in your sleep. I listen. That made me laugh. Nervously, but still. So, what's this about? Liam sat down on the edge of the couch, leaning forward like someone about to deliver either really good news or a breakup speech. I stayed standing because suddenly sitting next to him felt like a commitment I wasn't ready to make. He rubbed his palms together. Look, I don't want to make this weird, but I've been thinking about that night. The party. Okay, I said slowly, heartbeat picking up speed. That thing I said, about us not being just coworkers. I meant it. I swallowed. All right, and I don't know what that means yet. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to say half the things I want to say, because I'm your supervisor, and this job is supposed to be, professional, clean lines. But you don't feel clean lines. I finished for him. He looked up at me, eyes tired and searching. Not with you. I sat down across from him, careful not to sit too close. So what are you saying? That you've been, into me this whole time? I'm saying, he paused, hands still clasped together. Something's been building. I didn't plan for it, and it's not simple. He stopped. I've never felt this with a guy before, and I'm not saying I suddenly have it all figured out, but I'm also not going to pretend I don't feel it. I sat back, let that land. Because on the one hand, this was everything I had been aching to hear, but on the other, it came with landmines, power dynamics, messy emotions, the possibility of being someone's phase. So why now? I asked. Because I couldn't stop thinking about the look you gave me on that rooftop, like you knew something I didn't. And I needed to figure out if I was imagining it or if... He stopped again, then smiled faintly. You're not easy to ignore. I felt myself soften, despite every red flag waving in my mind. I wasn't imagining it either. Liam leaned back, exhaling like he'd been holding that breath all weekend. Jesus. We sat in silence, the kind that hummed with tension, but not in a bad way. The air between us felt charged, no longer awkward, just real, honest. Finally, I said, so what do we do now? He looked at me like he was asking himself the same question. I don't know. I just know I didn't want to keep pretending I didn't want to be around you. I stood up, not because I was rejecting him, but because I needed the air. I walked over to the window, pulled the curtain aside. Outside, the street was quiet. Just a couple of kids riding scooters, a food delivery guy walking back to his car. I don't want to be your experiment, Liam. His voice came from behind me, closer now. You're not. I turned. He was right there, not touching me, just standing close enough that I could feel the heat off his skin. I don't know where this goes, he said, but I want to find out. With you. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I stepped forward. Just an inch, then another. He didn't move, but his eyes flicked down to my lips, and that was all the permission I needed. I kissed him. Soft at first, cautious, like testing a theory. His mouth was warm, still tasting of vanilla and caffeine, and for a second I thought maybe he'd pull away. But he didn't. He leaned into it, one hand cupped the side of my face, the other slipping around my waist like he'd been waiting to do that forever. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing harder than we should have been. Liam laughed quietly. So, we're really doing this? I nodded. Looks like it. He kissed me again. Slower this time, less urgent, like sealing something real. The coffee sat forgotten on the table. The sun dipped lower outside the window, and I had no idea what came next. But I knew I wanted to find out. After that kiss, things didn't exactly go back to normal. They didn't fall apart either. It was somewhere in the middle. A strange, electric middle, where every glance felt louder and every touch carried weight. The next few days at work were a weird mix of restraint and familiarity. We didn't talk about it, not really, but we didn't avoid it either. Liam still gave me assignments, still cracked the same dry jokes, still brought me coffee without asking. But now, when our hands brushed over a file folder, we didn't pretend it didn't happen. I caught him watching me during meetings, his gaze lingering a second too long before flicking back to his laptop. When we walked to grab lunch, he'd sometimes nudge me with his shoulder like he used to, only this time, I knew it meant something. It was subtle, no fireworks. But it was real. That Friday, the office cleared out early, some company tradition I'd completely forgotten about. I had my backpack slung over one shoulder, debating if I should go straight home or kill time downtown, when Liam appeared at my side. "You busy?" he asked. "Not really." He gave a casual nod toward the elevator. "Come with me." I didn't ask where, I just followed. We ended up walking a few blocks to his apartment, a fifth-floor unit in a renovated warehouse, all exposed brick and open beams. I'd never been inside before, but it suited him. Clean lines, warm wood, a few plants struggling for survival near the windows. "Nice place," I said, stepping inside. He kicked off his shoes and tossed his keys on the counter. "You want a drink or something?" "I'm good," I said, still looking around. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that made you aware of your heartbeat. He leaned against the kitchen counter. "I've been trying to figure out how not to make this messy." I turned to face him. "This being us?" He nodded. "I keep telling myself to slow down, to be smart, but then I remember how it felt to kiss you, and I start thinking, maybe messy isn't the worst thing." I crossed the room slowly, until we were a few feet apart. "What are you afraid of?" He laughed softly. "That I'll screw this up. That I'll hurt you without meaning to." I studied him. His expression, his posture. He looked like someone trying hard to stay in control. It was the same look he wore during tense client meetings, except this wasn't a client pitch. This was us. "I'm not asking for a 5-year plan," I said. "I'm asking if you're in this. Whatever this is, for real." His eyes locked on mine. "Yeah, I'm in." The words settled in the space between us. Then he reached for me, and I didn't hesitate. We didn't rush this time. The kiss was slow, deliberate, a mutual unspooling of everything we'd held back all week. His hands on my waist, my fingers in his hair. We kissed like people making a choice. No alcohol, no party, no excuses. Just us. We ended up on his couch, limbs tangled, his mouth pressed to my neck, my shirt halfway off before he paused. He looked at me, breath shallow. "You okay?" I nodded, already feeling his heart beat against mine. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not work, not labels, not what might come next. Just the fact that he was here, and I was here, and we weren't pretending anymore. I woke up on Liam's couch, wrapped in one of his oversized hoodies that smelled faintly of cedar and whatever cologne he used. The sun had just started creeping in through the wide industrial windows, casting lines across the hardwood floor. My back was stiff from sleeping curled up, but I didn't mind. What I minded was the fact that Liam wasn't next to me anymore. I sat up slowly, scanning the room. His sneakers were gone from the door. The kitchen was empty. The place was too quiet. Then I saw the note. A yellow sticky pressed to the counter near a steaming mug. "Didn't want to wake you. Early meeting. Coffee's fresh. Text me when you're up, Al." It was simple. No hearts, no unnecessary flourishes. But it made my chest tighten in a way I didn't expect. I drank half the coffee before realizing I couldn't stop smiling. That weekend, we didn't see each other. Liam texted here and there. Quick, check-in kind of messages. I tried not to overthink it. He wasn't ghosting me. He was just busy. Still, by Sunday night, I found myself rereading our old message threads, wondering if I should text first. I didn't have to. Around 10 p.m., a knock came at my door. I opened it to find Liam standing there with 2 burritos and a tired smile. "Figured you hadn't eaten," he said, like this was the most casual thing in the world. He stepped inside and kicked his shoes off like he'd done it 100 times before. We sat on the floor, legs crossed, eating in silence for a while. The good kind of silence, comfortable and easy. When we finished, I wiped my hands on a napkin and leaned back against the couch. "So," I said, "are we just seeing where this goes?" Liam gave a soft shrug. I've never done anything like this before. Not just dating a guy. I mean, he paused. Being this unsure of the rules. I don't think there are rules, I said. At least not ones we have to follow. He looked at me for a long second. I want to keep seeing you. I nodded slowly. Okay. Even if it's complicated? Especially if it's complicated. That made him smile. Not his usual smirk, but something softer. Less guarded. Then he stood and reached down to pull me up with him. His hands didn't let go right away. We didn't sleep together that night. It wasn't like the movies. No passionate clothes tearing. Just a long hug in the dim light of my living room, and the kind of kiss that said I'm not going anywhere. Monday brought us back to the real world. Work, deadlines, meetings. And even though nothing had technically changed between us, everything felt different. A glance across the table during a client pitch. His hand brushing mine when he handed me a flash drive. The way he paused in the hallway, waiting until no one else was around to whisper, "You looked really good in that sweater today." We weren't fooling anyone. Well, maybe everyone else, but we weren't fooling ourselves anymore. By the end of the week, Liam asked if I wanted to stay over. Not like last time, not spontaneous or buzzed or accidental. This time, it was intentional. He cooked dinner. We sat side by side on his couch again, only this time, when his arm came around my shoulders, I leaned into it without thinking. And when we kissed, slow, warm, lingering, I felt that thing you're not supposed to say out loud too early. That thing that sits heavy in your chest, pulsing under every touch. I didn't say it, not yet, but I felt it. So did he. It was bound to happen eventually. The line we'd been so careful to walk, the one between public and private, professional and personal, finally blurred in the worst way possible. It started at the Wednesday morning team meeting. Nothing dramatic, just a normal sit-down in the conference room, with half the staff checking their emails and the other half nursing overpriced lattes. Liam was at the front, going over campaign numbers. I was at the end of the table, trying to stay focused. He was wearing that navy shirt, the one that made his shoulders look unfairly good. I caught his eye once, briefly, and he gave the smallest smile. A flicker, a private thing in a public space. I felt it in my chest. That was the moment I knew we were too visible. After the meeting, as I was walking past reception, I heard two coworkers whispering near the coffee machine. Did you see the way Liam looked at him? Him who? Eli. It was subtle, but I didn't stick around for the rest. That night, I told Liam. We were at his place, lying on the couch, half watching some sci-fi show neither of us had the energy to follow. I turned the volume down and just said it. People are noticing. He looked at me. Not surprised. I figured they would eventually. So what do we do? He was quiet for a long time. Then, I can go to HR. Disclose it. Tell them what's going on. My stomach tightened. Are you sure? He nodded. It's the right thing to do. I should have done it earlier. But it might affect your position. It might, he said. But not telling them could affect yours too. I'm not risking your job. That hit harder than I expected. He cared. Really cared. The next morning, Liam met with HR. He kept it simple. A consensual relationship, recent, no conflict of interest. Since I was an intern and not directly reporting to him anymore, we'd shifted projects the week prior, it didn't technically violate company policy. But still, the air around us shifted. People were polite, but the looks came. The knowing ones. Whispers when we walked by. I tried to pretend it didn't bother me, but it did. What hit hardest was the way Liam started pulling back. Not from me, but from everything else. He was quieter in meetings, more reserved with the team, like he was trying to shrink himself out of the spotlight. One night, I brought it up while we were eating Thai on his floor, using takeout containers as coasters. You've been off, I said, since the HR thing. He poked at his food, just trying to play it safe. You don't have to disappear to do that. He looked up. I'm not disappearing. It feels like you're scared. Of what? I hesitated. Of being seen with me. The silence that followed was the heaviest we'd had since this all began. I'm not scared of you, he said, but I'm scared of how fast this is moving. I didn't expect this. I didn't plan for it. I didn't either, I admitted. But it's not a mistake, he added quickly. That softened me. I moved closer, pressing my shoulder against his. Then don't treat it like one, he exhaled. I'm trying, I just need time. Okay, I said. You've got it. And he did. But that was the first time I saw it. The flicker of doubt in his eyes. Not about me, but about himself. By the third week of July, things had shifted again. Not in any explosive way. No fights, no dramatic exits, but in a quieter, more unsettling way. The kind of shift you feel more than see. Liam was still around. Still texting, still calling, still making time for me. But there was this distance, subtle, almost imperceptible, but it lingered in the way he hesitated before answering certain questions. In the way he'd kiss me goodbye without really looking me in the eye. I tried not to panic, but I knew what distance felt like, and I hated how familiar this one was starting to become. It all came to a head one night when I asked him if he wanted to come to a friend's birthday thing, low-key, just drinks and pizza at some rooftop downtown. Liam hesitated. I don't know, that kind of thing's not really my scene. It's not a scene, I said. It's just 5 people and some takeout. He rubbed the back of his neck. I'm just tired. Okay, I said, trying to play it cool. Another time. But the next night, when I showed him a photo from the party, me grinning with a drink in hand, his name tagged in the caption because someone assumed he was there, I saw something flicker in his expression. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. So I asked, Are you embarrassed? What? He said, caught off guard. Of this, of me, of people knowing. He looked stunned. No, God, no. Then what is it? Because you're acting like I'm this secret you regret having. That's not fair. Maybe not, I said, but it's what it feels like. He stood up, pacing for a moment, fingers tightening into fists. This isn't about you, Eli. I'm dealing with stuff. Like what? He didn't answer at first. Just stared out the window, jaw clenched. Then, like the fact that I've spent my whole life thinking I knew who I was. And then you show up. And now I'm rethinking everything. Every look, every touch, every choice I made before you. All of it. I stood to, heart pounding. So you regret it? No, he said quickly, voice sharp. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? He looked at me then. Really looked, and his face softened. I'm saying I'm scared. That cracked something open in me. Me too, I admitted. But that doesn't mean we get to hide from it. He nodded slowly, almost to himself. I know. I just don't want to screw this up. Then don't. It wasn't a romantic moment. It wasn't soft or cinematic. It was raw and uncomfortable and real. We sat in silence for a while after that. Then he reached for my hand, and I let him. Over the next few days, we found a new rhythm. Not perfect, not polished, but honest. Liam stopped avoiding things. He started showing up more, emotionally, physically. He came to the grocery store with me on a Saturday. He made breakfast in my apartment on a Sunday morning like it was the most natural thing in the world. We didn't define anything, but we didn't need to. It was working, whatever it was. Then, one night as we lay in bed, limbs tangled under my 2 warm sheets, he whispered something that made my breath catch. I told my sister. I turned my head. Told her what? About us. About me, I blinked. What did she say? She said it was about time. I laughed, relief flooding my chest. You really told her? He nodded. Didn't plan to. It just came out. And she didn't flinch. I pressed a kiss to his shoulder. That's huge. Yeah, he said, pulling me closer. It is. For the first time in weeks, I felt something shift again. Not away from us, but toward something. Something solid. Something real. We never said it. Not out loud. Not with the weight the word usually carries. But I felt it in the little things. The way Liam made coffee for me before I even woke up. The way he'd instinctively put a hand on the small of my back when we crossed the street. The way his voice softened whenever he said my name. He didn't need to say it. Not yet, but I knew. And I think he did too. That weekend, we took a spontaneous trip upstate, just a small town by the lake. Airbnb booked the night before, no itinerary. I drove. He played DJ, switching between indie bands and early 2000s emo tracks we both pretended not to know all the words to. The first night there, we didn't even leave the cabin. Just opened a bottle of wine and sat out on the porch, our feet bare, watching the sky go from blue to burnt orange to navy. You ever think about where this is going? I asked him, not looking over. Every day, he said, and he took a sip of wine. I think I'm not ready to say forever, but I don't want this to end. Same, I said, quieter than I meant to. We didn't need to say more. That night, we fell asleep in a bed that wasn't ours, in a town we didn't know, but it felt like the most grounded I'd been in months. His hand found mine under the covers. He didn't let go. The next few weeks blurred by. Summer turned into early fall. I got offered a full-time role at the company, and after a few tense conversations with HR and a couple policy tweaks, Liam and I were allowed to continue working without issues, just under different teams. It felt like the universe was saying, okay, you passed the test, now try living it. And we did. There were fights, of course there were. About stupid things, forgotten plans, messy dishes, a text that sounded colder than it was meant to. But none of them stuck. They didn't linger or fester. We always found our way back. That's what love looks like, I think. The returning. One night in late October, we were back at his apartment, curled up on the couch watching a horror movie that was more funny than scary. It was raining outside. The city felt quiet in that rare, comforting way. He looked over at me, eyes soft, and said, I feel like myself when I'm with you. I didn't say anything, just leaned in and kissed him. Slow, certain of him, of us, of what we were building. Messy, imperfect, unplanned, but ours. A few days later, while brushing my teeth in his bathroom, I opened the medicine cabinet and saw something small but surprising. A spare toothbrush. Mine, sitting in the cup next to his. I stared at it for a second, then closed the cabinet, heart warm. Thanksgiving rolled around faster than either of us expected. Liam was flying home to visit his parents, the first time since we'd started seeing each other that we'd spend more than a few days apart. I tried to act casual about it, but the night before his flight I found myself packing a bag of snacks and gum, like some mid-air survival kit. You know it's a 90-minute flight, right? He joked, watching me fuss over it. Yeah, I said, stuffing the last granola bar in, but you're impossible when you're hungry. He smirked, walked over, and took the bag from me. Then he leaned in and kissed me. Slow, familiar, like we'd been doing this for years, not months. Gonna miss you, he murmured. You too. There was a beat, something unspoken hovering in the space between us. I could feel it, so could he, but we didn't say it. Not yet. 3 days later, he called me from his childhood bedroom. The signal was spotty, but his voice was light, easier than I expected. My mom asked if I was seeing anyone, he said. I didn't lie. I paused. You told her about me? Yeah. And? She asked if you'd come for Christmas. My breath caught. Really? She said, and I quote, if he makes you smile like that, I want to meet him. I laughed, not even trying to hide how relieved I was. Then Liam said, I told her you're not just someone I'm seeing, that you matter. I went quiet. You still there? He asked. Yeah, I said, just processing. And that's when it happened. I didn't plan it. It just slipped out, like it had been sitting on the edge of my tongue for weeks. I love you. There was silence on the line, but not the scary kind. The full kind. Like we were both letting it sink in. Then softly, I love you too. Christmas came. I flew out. Met his family. Ate too much. Fell asleep on his shoulder during a movie while his mom threw a blanket over us without a word. We weren't perfect. Still had things to figure out. But we were solid. We were real. Back in the city, when January started and work picked up again, I moved into his place, slowly, drawer by drawer, shirt by shirt. Until one morning, I looked around and realized it felt more like home than anywhere else ever had. And on a random Thursday night, Liam came in from the kitchen, sat beside me on the couch, and rested his head on my shoulder. "You know what I was thinking?" he asked. "What?" "This started with a resume." I laughed. "Yeah, the ridiculous one." He smiled against my skin. "I'm glad I said that." "Why?" "Because it made you look at me different. And you looking at me different made me feel seen. Maybe for the first time." I turned my head, kissed his temple. And in that quiet, simple way we had, I told him again, "I love you." This time, he didn't even have to say it back. I already knew.